your typical CEO entrepreneur, probably a quick start. They're going to dive in. It's not going to be as complete as maybe you would like it to be. But if we start off, do we hit the point of good enough is good enough, or how do you approach that?
This is such a big question, because the question is, when you have impetus or a little bit of momentum to do something, how do you keep it? How do you keep it? How do you have the follow through? Because the mind is like a monkey on crack, and it's, zipping out. You're like, I might be thinking in a minute, I'd be thinking about the TV show I watched last night. One way that I know, and I acknowledge that I'm biased because I've been coaching for 20 years, and at some point recently I had 5 coaches for different things in my life. So, but one way is to work with a coach. The coach is there to make sure that things don't drop and don't slide. And every week you got to come back and talk about what you did and what you said you do and you didn't do. So that's one way. Another way, which usually I recommend in combination with coaching, is to block off time in your calendar for it and show up for those dates. That's the other thing, because people block off time, then they get busy and they don't do it. That's, again, where the coach comes in. But you can block off time. Say, all right, every Monday morning is leverage time. Now, you said maybe I'd have you start with a 4D audit. That's not where I would start. I think it's really important, but where I usually recommend people start is, where are we heading? Where do you want to be 12 months from now? If we were working together for 12 months and we fast forward and now we're celebrating and looking back. And I got this question from Dan Sullivan. What would have to have happened for you to feel really happy with your progress? List 3 big business goals that would have you doing the happy dance and calling everybody and saying, this is so awesome. And then 3 big personal goals. So we start with that. So we have something at stake. Otherwise, who cares? What's the point of focusing? We don't even know why we'd bother. And then if you've got that, we work backwards. All right, once you've got that, the next step, and I just gave a new client this homework this week. What's the 3-month milestone for each of those goals? We're just layering the goals now. It's not that complicated. Okay, 3 months from now, this would have me do the happy dance. And then every single week, you need to know what your weekly action plan is, even if you just spent 5 minutes on it. But every week, you need to know, all right, this week, these are the things that I've consciously chosen are going to make the biggest difference in my business. And if you have that date with yourself once a week, then I have confidence. If you show up for that date and do it, let's say 12 of them. So that'll get you through 3 months. Do 12 dates with yourself just for, say, 10 to 20 minutes, where you choose consciously, this is what matters for the next 7 days, and this is what does not matter for the next 7 days. It's going to be an absolute game changer in your business. And then once you've got those things in place, and by the way, I've got a checklist with all of this stuff. We can give it away at the end of this interview if you like. Once you've got those things in place, then I would say do the 4D audit and start offloading. And I don't think you're going to slow down and stop, or at least your chances are better, because you've got that regular date with yourself where you're going to have to come back and look what matters, what doesn't matter, what matters, what doesn't matter. I can't stress this enough. If you don't have that structure, then yeah, you'll get lost. You'll get lost, you'll fall off the horse, and you may not get yourself back on the horse.
We have a process in our practice called the Transitus Process, and it's 4 steps. It's very quick and it's easy. This is what we ask people when they call us for the first time, and it's usually because there's some life event, some disruption, and they need to deal with it. And the first is, what's going on? Followed by, how did you get here? Questions 3 and 4 are, what are you thinking? And then 4 is, how do you feel? And the reason how do you feel is so important to us is not only do people need to recognize the state they're in of, this is where I'm at, and obviously they don't want to be there. We then do the bonus question, which is, well, how do you want to feel? If you resolve this, how would you feel? When you tie that into the goals, now I think you have a little more juice on it. Is that something that you dig in? Do you try to get to where someone's mindset is and how they're settled and personal and spiritual growth? I mean, how do you include that?
That's a great question. So I was just talking to a business owner recently. He sells software as a service, and I wasn't buying it that he really wanted to keep working on his company for the next year and a half, because he said he wanted an exit plan. He wanted to exit for 10 million. But when I dug deeper, it seemed like he was pretty close to it right now. Like, why don't you exit now? And I pushed him because I was looking for the motivation. What's going to have you week after week show up and make changes? If we can't find the motivation, this is just entertainment. Nothing's going to really happen. So what we discovered is he's not done yet. He could exit now for 10 million, but he's not done. There's another product he wants to bring to market. There's low hanging fruit. He wants to really boost the multiple that he's going to get, not just for the money. He doesn't need it for the money. He wants to build. So then I was like, okay, that sounds like a motivator. You're not done with this business yet. Now, something else, Ross, I'm very excited that you brought up this concept of how do you, people get excited, they get started, but how do you stick to it? I think I'm often delusional. I tell myself all sorts of stories. And one story that I think we tell ourselves is, I can make massive change alone. Now, some people can. Sometimes it happens. There's a bolt of lightning. Eckhart Tolle woke up one day, said, I can't live with myself. And then his brain went, myself? Who's that? And he had an epiphany. All right. Sometimes it happens, but more often than not, we delude ourselves. We think, all right, I just heard this on a podcast or I read this in a book. I'm going to go and bring this into my business. It usually doesn't happen. I just had a guy 2 weeks ago. He was like, yeah, I need help. Okay. What do you need? All right. Boom, 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 boom. All right. Would you like help? He's like, well, let me try it on my own. Look, it's a valid move to go and try it on your own. The thing is, he's gambling with his business and he's gambling with his life. And what I think he doesn't realize is that most people who say that will fall off the horse and not find their way back to the horse. And he told me, I'm sick of bumbling around at the $3 million mark. I think that in a year, there's a good chance, unless he puts in some solid structures, which usually involves some third-party accountability. Doesn't have to, but unless he does that, I think a year from now, he'll still be in his patterns, because we are creatures of habit. And so I just wanted to bring that up. I normally don't talk about it, but I think we delude ourselves, and that's fine, again, unless what we want, what our goals are something that really matter. If we really want, I would say, don't gamble with that. Like, get all the help you can, line up your friends, go and get a therapist, get yourself a coach, put yourself in a mastermind, whatever it is, so you can bust out of your pattern and actually get to those goals, which hopefully includes some work-life balance.